It's 23 minutes past 5 o'clock and I'm joined by Jack O'Connor, the General President of SIPTU, and we were talking earlier about the monies paid into this SIPTU account, which is at the centre of the skill training scheme controversy, and the amount of money seems to be growing by the day. The Public Accounts Committee yesterday called it a slush fund, and Jack O'Connor, this doesn't look good for SIPTU. Here we have an account, we don't know how long the account has been in existence. We're being told it bears the name, the SIPTU account, to give it its official title, the SIPTU National Health and Local Authority Levy Fund Account. Vast amounts of public money have been sloshing through it, and there seems to be no accountability.
Good evening, Mary. I think that's the understatement of the century you've just made there, to say that it doesn't look good for SIPTU. It certainly does not. But we didn't look for this money. We didn't receive this money. We weren't consulted about it. It was paid into an account that was never authorised by the officers of the Union in the appropriate way, or by the National Executive Council. It was never audited or subject to our procedures. So in that regard, it bore the title referring to the name of the Union, but it didn't feature in the procedures of the Union whatsoever, in the accountancy procedures in the normal way. So it's continuously being referred to as the SIPTU account.
That's what it's called. It bears the name. Will I read it again? The SIPTU National Health and Local Authority Levy Fund Account.
Yes, that's the name that's put on it. But it wasn't an account that we had jurisdiction over until the 13th of August of this year, when our trustees, in the course of the inquiry they had initiated into all these matters, obtained control of it.
How old is this account?
I'm not able to say precisely how old it is, but it extends back to the late 1990s, bearing that name. And when the inquiry, which is currently underway, being conducted by our trustees, is completed, then that will identify all these details.
You said there, Jack O'Connor, back to the late 90s, bearing that name. Did it have another name at another time?
I'm not able to confirm. That. All I'm able to say is that our trustees' inquiry, when it is completed, will reveal the details of all the transactions extending back to the initiation of the account.
It is very confusing to have a fund, to have an account, to have public monies going through it, and it all comes under the banner of SIPTU, and then you sit here and tell us you had no jurisdiction over it, you had no authority over it, you knew nothing about it. And are you telling me that nobody at a senior level in SIPTU knew anything about this account?
Well, what I'm saying is that you see, there are accounts, there are small benevolent funds that existed in our old structure, where branches deposited a small amount of money for bursaries to...
This doesn't come under that category.
Well, no, obviously not. But it may have originated as that.
So you're saying it may have evolved from the old...
Yes,
ITGWU or something like that?
Or possibly the other union, the FWI. You see, these are matters which... sorry, Mary.
But even if that was so, the control of that account would have passed through different officials down through the decades. And would somebody at some point not have said to you or to some of your predecessors, hang on a sec, we have hundreds of thousands of pounds running around in an account here, we need to do something about it?
No, because they wouldn't have known that, you see. The transactions on this account were never made known to anyone in the management of the union or in the control of the accountancy systems in the union. This account was maintained by individual people outside
Members
of that.
of SIPTU?
Yes, people.
Officials of SIPTU?
Well, an official and another person who is not an employee of the union, but is associated with the union and is involved in the union.
Vast amounts of money have been poured into this account from the HSE, the Department of Health. We're hearing today through the local authority system. We don't still have a final figure. You said yesterday, I think in your statement, that you were setting aside 348,000 with the Commissioner of Oaths as an act of good faith pending the outcome of the investigation.
Yes.
Are you still doing that?
Well, you see, what we did, we announced that last Tuesday. And what we were doing there is that although we cannot be held legally liable for accounting for these monies, because no court in the land would hold you legally liable for money that you never actually received, there is another issue that we are concerned about here, which has to do not with the limited issue of legal liability as such, but there is the issue of our relationship with the Irish people, which extends back to the foundation of the state.
Hang on a sec. This is about 348,000. You said earlier in the week you're lodging it with the Commissioner for Oaths as a mark of good faith.
Yes, and if you will allow me to explain.
Has that been done?
Yes, that has been done, and that money is still there, but it's obvious from the way in which our initiative has been interpreted, because it's been interpreted as an admission of liability, that we cannot now proceed to do what we declared it was our intention to do, which was that if it transpired that there were monies that were not vouched for received into that account, we would address that. We would pay that money over. We cannot now do that, but we will not walk away from the issue, and we will find another way of addressing it.
Let me ask you this way. If you are found, SIPTU as a union is found to be responsible for a certain sum of money in this account, will you be repaying it?
We won't be held to be responsible. That cannot happen. But
if you are?
No, that cannot happen. But that does not mean
that we... You may be morally responsible.
Yes,
you talked about legal and moral.
Here's the question. We will take responsibility for it. That is an entirely different question, and we will find a way of addressing the issue, but we can't do it in the way that we said on Tuesday, because that's being interpreted as an admission of liability, and we cannot be held liable.
And that's a legal definition you're taking there as well.
Precisely.
Jim O'Keefe at the Public Accounts Committee yesterday called it a slush fund. Would you find it hard to argue with that?
Well, my problem here is that I don't know the full facts until such time as our trustees have completed their inquiry. But if it transpires that it is as is being described in the media today and over the last few days, I wouldn't disagree with it.
Not just in the media, at the Public Accounts Committee
Yes, and in the public domain.
Yeah. Well, I think people may find that the money trail involved here quite complicated, but they can certainly, given what we learned in Foss, they can certainly easily understand what is happening in terms of the sort of travel that seems to have been funded out of this account. We have people going to Australia, New York, Los Angeles, Boston, back again, Hong Kong and New York again. Many of the trips coinciding with St. Patrick's Day. Did you ever go on one of these trips?
No, I never went on any of those trips. Neither did Joe O'Flynn, the General Secretary of the Union. Neither did Patricia King, the Vice President. And neither did the previous Vice President, Brendan Hayes, or any other officer of the Union.
Did you know about them?
We became aware that there were some study visits, and inquiries were made by the General Secretary, and the General Secretary was advised that there had been study trips, they were entirely in accord with appropriate practice, and that they had the full approval of senior officials in HSE and the Department of Health.
Did Peter McClune go on these trips?
Which incidentally turned out to be true.
Did Peter McClune go on these trips?
Well, I'm not able to say that he did.
Did you ask him?
No, I didn't, no. I'm not conducting this inquiry. The trustees of the union are conducting the inquiry. It's in the public domain today that he did.
What were they studying? In Boston and Hong Kong and St. Patrick's Day in New York. What would they be studying?
Well, leave aside when they studied it. What I do know, and I don't know it all, what I do know is that there are initiatives underway in these countries involving the development of people in the lesser skilled grades in the context of developing the health services in those places. And there are quite dynamic initiatives being taken, and it is worth looking at them. But I am not saying that necessarily justifies what took place here.
Los Angeles.
And I'm not in a position...
Australia. It's a long way to go for study initiatives of the sort that you're outlining, Jack O'Connor.
It is, but sorry, Mary, just a second. I am not justifying that. I am trying to be fair to everyone here. And I am trying to recognise that until such time as the inquiry that is currently underway is completed, which we expect will be no more than 3 weeks away.
Will you make the full contents of the outcome of that inquiry public?
We will, unless the Gardaí prohibit us from doing so. Other than that, we will be making it public.
Do you suspect that there may be more money from other government departments or other wings of government departments that channelled their way through this account?
What we believe is that what's in the public domain at the minute it coincides with what the trustees have established to be the full extent of what is involved in that account.
So you believe the full level of what went on in that account is now out there?
Yes, yes, insofar as the trustees have been able to establish.
All right. So you will have a full report in 3 weeks' time?
Yes, the trustees have set 3 weeks' time as the outside. It may come in before that. There is one problem, which is that the legal representatives of some of the people who are signatories to the account have initiated a separate process entailing a comprehensive audit of the account by Grant Thornton, and our trustees would very much like to obtain a copy of that before they complete their report in order to establish what light it can throw on the issue. And the indications we understand are that will be available very shortly and should enable them to complete their work within the 3 weeks. But in the absence of that, the plan that I understand from them is to have it completed within 3 weeks at the latest, if not earlier.
It seemed from what I think it was the audit official in the HSE was saying yesterday that there's very little paper around this account. But she said what paper there is, you have.
Well, what paper we have, we'll be making available.
Do you have much paper?
I'm not able to say the extent of it, but I'm able to say that the trustees who are conducting the inquiry have obtained paper, and they have obtained some details which, in relation to the reasons for these study visits and so on, which are not currently in the public domain. But whether they will, they're as extensive as one would hope they would be, I cannot say at this point in time.
The noun toxic has been used a lot around banks in this country over the last couple of years, and I suppose the toxic could be used around the odour that's around this as well. This is your members' money. These are members, many of them out of jobs at the moment. It won't be surprising if they are disgusted by what they're hearing.
No, and if it turns out to be true, they won't be the only ones who are disgusted.
What will you do?
Well, people have rights, and we have to respect those rights, and we haven't heard the other side of the story at all. We've only heard one side of the story, and we're talking about people who have been involved all their lives in working for working people, and who had a very good idea, there's no doubt about that, but it seems that there are huge issues about how they managed the thing, and it's a matter for them to explain, but it's also a matter for the rest of us to afford them an opportunity to do so.
Just finally, is it time for a complete root and branch examination of how SIPTU does its business, how it attends to corporate governance? It
is true that our systems failed to pick this up. We were pretty certain that our system was unassailable, and there are questions that we have to address in that context.
Jack O'Connor, thank you very much for joining us. That's Jack
Thank
O'Connor,
you, Mary.
the General President of SIPTU. It's 25 minutes to 6 o'clock, a little late.